The church was full. Sunlight spilled through the stained glass windows. Flowers lined the aisle. A string quartet played softly as guests whispered excitedly. Daniel Ross stood at the altar in his custom-made navy tux, his hands trembling not from nerves, but anticipation. Today he would marry Lena Carter, the woman he believed was his forever. But 20 minutes passed, then 30. Whispers turned to murmurs. The music stopped. The maid of honor, pale and nervous, stepped forward and handed Daniel a note. A single line, written in Lena's familiar handwriting. I can't do this. I'm sorry. Else she was gone. No explanation. No will-be. Just gone. Humiliated before 300 guests, Daniel walked out of the church alone. His heart shattered. He disappeared from the public eye. Rumors spread, but Daniel said nothing. Daniel moved to a quiet coastal town. He built a new life, one brick at a time. He started his own marketing company and poured his energy into work. The pain, though dulled, never truly vanished. Occasionally, he'd see Lena's face in dreams or nightmares. Emily Bennett, his best friend since college, remained close. She never brought up the wedding. Instead, she was there in the silence, helping Daniel recover with patience and quiet strength. 5 years later, Daniel was thriving. His company had gone national. He was calm, successful, and had learned to smile again. But one afternoon, a phone notification stopped him cold. Lena Carter is engaged to Michael Harrington, tech millionaire and founder of Heritech. A photo followed Lena, glowing in a white designer gown at her bridal shower. Her caption, this time, forever it burned. Daniel's past wasn't just returning, it was being celebrated on every social feed and headline. But he didn't feel bitter. He felt clarity. Daniel knew something others didn't. Before their wedding, Lena had been acting strangely secretive, distracted. A week before she vanished, Daniel had seen messages on her phone from a man named MH. He never confronted her. But now it made sense. Michael Harrington wasn't new. He was the reason. Daniel hired a discreet investigator. Within days, he had it all. Lena had been seeing Michael before their wedding. She had left Daniel for a man with more money, more prestige. But that wasn't all. Lena had never told Michael about Daniel or the wedding she ran from. Her image was carefully curated. And Daniel had proof, photos, texts, even old voicemails. Daniel didn't plan revenge. He planned truth. He showed up at Lena's wedding, not dressed to crash it, but in a simple black suit. The venue was an extravagant vineyard estate, filled with high-profile guests and journalists. When he walked in, eyes turned. Lena saw him and froze. Michael, confused, greeted him politely. Daniel took the mic from the DJ. I promise this won't take long, he said, voice steady. But the truth always deserves a moment. He looked at Lena. 5 years ago, I stood waiting at an altar you never walked down. I was humiliated, left without answers. Today, I've come not to ruin your day, but to reveal what you've built it on. He showed the texts, the pictures, the timeline, how Lena had been with Michael while engaged to Daniel. The audience gasped. Michael's expression darkened. Lena tried to speak, but the silence was louder than her excuses. And then, Daniel simply walked away. Michael didn't marry Lena. The wedding was called off on the spot. Lena stood alone, abandoned before everyone, just as Daniel had once been. Later, reporters hounded Daniel for interviews. He declined them all. Instead, he drove to the coast and met Emily at their favorite beach cafe. You did it, she said softly. I didn't do it for revenge, Daniel replied. I did it so I could finally let go. They sat in peace. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the ocean gold. Daniel wasn't broken anymore. He was free. Months later, Daniel launched a mentorship program for people recovering from public betrayal, helping others rebuild, as he had. Lena disappeared from the spotlight. Michael quietly moved on. And Daniel? He and Emily eventually fell in love. Not the loud, sweeping kind, but the slow, steady kind that's built on trust, healing, and truth. When Daniel left the city behind, the place where every corner reminded him of Lena, every street echoed with memories of a life that had collapsed, he didn't just pack his bags. He packed away years of hope, dreams, and heartbreak. The decision to move to a quiet coastal town was not made lightly. It was the culmination of sleepless nights, countless tears, and a soul desperate for peace. The town was small, the kind where everyone knew each other's names, but rarely pried. The salty breeze from the ocean was a balm to his weary spirit, and the endless horizon gave him a strange sense of possibility. Here, no one knew him as the groom left at the altar. He was just Daniel, a man seeking refuge. The first few weeks were the hardest. He found a modest apartment overlooking the sea, a place where the crashing waves drowned out the ghosts of his past. Mornings were slow, sometimes painfully empty. He wandered along the beach, picking up shells, watching the gulls soar, and letting the cold water wash over his feet. It was in these moments of solitude that Daniel began to confront the rawness inside him. Work became his anchor. Using the skills he'd honed during years in the city, Daniel started building his own marketing company from scratch. He spent long hours at a tiny desk in a rented office, crafting campaigns, pitching ideas, and chasing clients. Each successful project was a small victory, a testament to his resilience. Every late night, every phone call, every challenge met was a brick laid in the foundation of his new life. But healing wasn't linear. No matter how hard he worked, the pain lingered in quiet moments, in the lull of a conversation, in the fading light of dusk, or when he closed his eyes at night. Lena's face would appear in his dreams. Sometimes she smiled. Sometimes she was angry or distant. These visions bled into his waking hours like shadows, reminding him that some wounds cut deeper than time could mend. Daniel grappled with anger, sadness, and confusion. Why had she left? What had he missed? The questions circled endlessly, but answers were elusive. He tried therapy, pouring his thoughts into journals and confiding in Emily, his closest friend. Each helped a little, but the scars remained. Yet amid the struggle, Daniel found small joys. The local cafe where he became a regular. The bookstore down the street that smelled of old pages and possibility. The neighbors who greeted him with genuine warmth. Slowly, the town's rhythm became his own. He started to explore hobbies long neglected, photography, jogging along the coastline, even learning to cook. These simple acts rebuilt his sense of self beyond the broken relationship. The company grew, and with it, Daniel's confidence. He hired a small team of passionate young professionals who shared his vision. Together, they celebrated wins and weathered storms. Daniel learned leadership, patience, and the power of community. Still, the past was never far away. Lena's name would surface in news feeds, social media whispers, or accidental encounters. Each time, Daniel forced himself to breathe, to remember how far he'd come. He began volunteering at a local support group for people healing from heartbreak, sharing his story and listening to others. It was in giving that he found unexpected peace. Years passed, and Daniel's scars softened, but never fully disappeared. They shaped him into a man who could love again, cautiously, wisely, and with a heart ready for the future. The quiet coastal town was no longer just a refuge, it was home. Daniel's life had been shattered once before, when Lena had abandoned him at the altar, humiliated him in front of everyone he cared about. But as time went on, the wound started to heal, or so he thought. What he didn't realize was that the story he believed, the one he told himself to find closure, was only the surface of a much deeper, darker truth. Lena, it seemed, had carefully constructed a new identity, an image so polished and perfect that no one, Not even Michael, her new fiancé, could see past the facade. Daniel had suspected something for a while. Rumors, whispers from old friends, strange gaps in Lena's story, they all added up to a puzzle he was determined to solve. It began one rainy afternoon when Daniel, while sorting through some old belongings stored in his attic, stumbled upon a forgotten box, one he hadn't dared to open in years. Inside were relics from a life he had tried to leave behind. Photographs, crumpled letters, text messages saved on a broken phone, and voicemails that still held Lena's voice, sometimes warm and familiar, sometimes cold and distant. Each item was a piece of a hidden story, a narrative Lena had never shared with Michael or anyone else. Daniel's hands trembled as he replayed the voicemails, hearing her voice saying things she had never said in person, revealing secrets, doubts, and plans that had been carefully concealed. One photograph in particular caught his eye, a snapshot of Lena laughing with a man Daniel didn't recognize. The image was candid, but the message it sent was clear. There was more to Lena's past than the pristine, picture-perfect woman Michael believed he knew. As Daniel dug deeper, he uncovered text conversations between Lena and this unknown man. They spoke in code, their messages filled with cryptic references and veiled threats. It became clear that Lena's sudden disappearance on their wedding day was no impulsive act of cold feet. It was calculated, premeditated. The betrayal ran deeper than Daniel had imagined. Lena had never told Michael about him, about their relationship, or about the wedding she abandoned. She erased Daniel from her new life as if he had never existed, and built a new story where she was the innocent victim, the misunderstood heroine. Armed with this evidence, Daniel felt a mix of emotions, anger, sorrow, vindication, and a strange sense of empowerment. The pain of betrayal was still there, but now it was coupled with a fierce determination to expose the truth. He knew what he had to do. The wedding day wasn't just a celebration. It was a stage, a platform to reveal everything. The lies, the secrets, the hidden past would all come crashing down, shattering the illusion Lena had built. As the day approached, Daniel prepared carefully. He didn't want to just cause chaos for the sake of revenge. He wanted justice, truth, and perhaps closure. He reached out to friends and allies, gathering support and strategizing how best to unveil Lena's deception. On the morning of the wedding, as the guests arrived and the venue buzzed with anticipation, Daniel stood quietly in the shadows. His heart pounded, but his resolve was steel. When the moment came, he stepped forward not as a jilted ex, but as a man armed with undeniable proof. He shared the photos, the texts, the voicemails. Each revelation was a blow, unraveling Lena's carefully crafted narrative. Gasps filled the room, whispers turned to murmurs, and the stunned silence was broken only by the undeniable truth. Lena's face paled, the mask of innocence slipping away. Michael's expression twisted in shock and betrayal, mirroring the pain Daniel had felt years ago. In that moment, the tables turned. Lena stood alone, exposed, shamed, and abandoned in front of hundreds. The groom she had once left at the altar was no longer the victim. He was the victor of a truth long buried. For Daniel, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming his dignity, restoring his honor, and finally closing a painful chapter of his life. The evidence he uncovered wasn't just proof of betrayal. It was a testament to his strength, resilience, and refusal to be silenced.